A diminutive yet surprisingly robust adaptation of one of SNK's most celebrated franchises, with the chibi-fied aesthetic bringing frantic, slashy, weapon-based combat to the portable for the second time in a matter of less than 5 months. We saw the first Samurai Shodown released as one of the small handful of monochrome games the original system got, and here we'd get a fully colorized version, but it wasn't just a remake of the first. The challenge with any one of the plentiful number of fighting games on the Neo Geo, apart from keeping them feeling fresh and not redundant, is transcribing the series' expansive control schemes onto the more condensed 2-button format, and as with all the other ones we've looked at so far, this was achieved really well. I won't go into the controls too much, seeing as how this is the 5th fighting game on the Pocket already, but a simple combination of short and long button presses combined with the much more versatile 8-directional joystick that made move inputs much more accessible just did the job perfectly. I guess that's why there were so many of them. They really were SNK's specialty. You never need to resort to mindless button mashing at any point. Learn the straightforward moves and when they can be pulled off, and you're onto a winner. That's not to say you won't be button mashing at all, but it won't be mindless. What this has over the more hand-to-hand brawlers is the Samurai combo system, pulled off by rapidly tapping correct combinations of the A or B buttons. Not only a great way to get multiple hits off, but also to fill up the power gauge. Like I say, your inputs do need to be correct here, else it won't really work, but master it and it'll form a key part of your arsenal. The wide and varied roster features 16 different characters who all have their unique moves, special techniques, and even 2 different ways each to play them, slash and bust, which grant them a different moveset, so in effect, giving you 32 playstyles to explore. You'd be hard-pressed to find that much longevity in any fighting game as it stands, but there's a further layer of customization over that as well. Yeah, there are different game modes here, unlike Fatal Fury First Contact from the previous review. You can unlock these collectible cards, of which there are 120 in total. Now they're not just trinkets to collect, but instead, before each fight you can equip 2 of them to your fighter, and they'll power them up in certain ways, which could give you a real advantage. These might increase your attack power, HP, or defense, or they could even add a special attack to the moveset. To unlock them all, you'll need to play as all the characters, as the cards typically are fighter specific. Plus, you'll want to crank up the difficulty, as well as play in both slash and bust styles. Slash has sometimes been referred to in Samurai Shodown games as chivalry, which kind of implies that it's the honourable way for the character to fight, and that's certainly reflected in the almost martial arts, disciplined style the characters will perform with. It not only changes their moveset, but also dictates their poses, and even the taunts and such they fire at each other when they win. Bust, on the other hand, is sometimes called treachery, and often incorporates a more rule-breaking, arrogant attitude where the characters basically show no respect to their opponents. This doesn't necessarily mean that the bust version of a character is stronger though. Sometimes yes, but it kind of depends on the nature of the character to begin with. Some fighters are just naturally predisposed to being bad guys, whereas others are more honourable to begin with. Think of it in terms of babyface and heel for you wrestling fans. Some guys are just better being evil. The super deformed art style certainly works very well on the smaller screen, and potentially is a better choice than trying to translate the more realistic arcade feel would have been. The characters all still maintain their distinct identities, and like I say, their individual fighting styles ensure they're still recognizable to fans. This sprite work choice allowed the artists to really exaggerate the animations and movements, ensuring that despite the small screen, the emotions and freneticism of the battles still comes across. And it's all wonderfully colored as well, with delightfully drawn backgrounds and short cutscenes in between fights that really add to the atmosphere. Speaking of atmospherics actually, I think the limited sound capabilities of the system was used very effectively here, never doing anything super technical but delivering a very sound backdrop, drenched in ambience, perfectly complementing the game's feudal era setting. A modernistic, techno-style soundtrack wouldn't make a lot of sense, so it's nice to hear the more traditional inspiration here. The sound effects themselves are minimal but effective. The clash of weapons and faint grunts are simplistic but focused on immediacy, ensuring that every one enhances the gameplay while staying within its bounds. Neo Geo Pocket's fighting game roster is something we'll continuously come back to in this series. It's quite famously the highlight of the entire library, with certain games, this one included, garnering a kind of cult following in the right circles, often being praised as the best of their kind on basically any handheld. Samurai Shodown 2 remains, if nothing else, a testament to what the Neo Geo Pocket Color could achieve from a technical standpoint. And this really does show SNK at their peak in that regard. It's really a shame that other genres didn't always get this level of quality. When you look at games that you can level this acclaim at, they do mostly have that one thing in common, those 3 letters SNK. But they couldn't be the masters of every video game genre. If only the console was not so hampered in terms of third-party support, thanks very much Nintendo, we might well talk about it in more competitive terms, as opposed to an also-ran.